Wednesday, shaping the way we teach English. Webinar course, shaping the way we teach English. Webinar Wednesday.
Welcome to Shaping the Way We Teach English, Webinar Course 16, brought to you by the American English team. My name is Jenny, part of the American English team based in Washington, D.C. Welcome to you, our large all around the world. This webinar course is a special one all about English Teaching Forum, quarterly journal written by teachers for teachers, has been around for 53 years. And this year, Forum has a new look and a lot of new content. So first I want to know, you'll see this poll on the screen. How many of you have ever read English Teaching Forum before? You can just answer yes, no, or maybe you don't know, what is that? So as I mentioned, there's a lot of new content in Forum that you might not have seen before. And one section is called the Reader's Guide. And so I can see that 63% of you have read Forum before. But have you ever read Forum articles as part of a discussion club with other teachers? Well, now you easily can, because Forum has a Reader's Guide that can be used also as a discussion guide for articles with other teachers. So here you see our Course 16 schedule. I want to let you know that there is one change in the schedule. The third webinar, the topic has changed due to a presenter shift. So our next topic on May 20th will be the gradual release of responsibility, and this is related to teacher training. As you know, during these webinars, you will hear, just like you hear me now, the presenter, but you will not see the presenter. And the way for you to participate is by using the chat box, as you are already doing. You'll also see myself, moderator Jenny, moderator Heather, moderator Tony, and moderator Katie, all here to help you in our community, to help each other. We know you'll have lots of questions, and we'll do our best to answer them, but if we don't get to all of them, there's also a way for you to ask the presenter questions after the webinar is over. You may also be asked questions in the form of polls, for example, the one you see on the screen. And we know sometimes people have technical difficulties, but if you lose sound, please follow along in the caption pod, which is at the bottom of the screen. As you know, webinar courses consist of 6 webinars, and they take place every other Wednesday. And if you attend at least 4 webinars, then you are eligible for an e-certificate that will be sent to you by your regional English language officer or local U.S. embassy. So if you are missing a certificate, that is who you should contact. This is very important. If you've attended our webinars before, we do have a new attendance system for this course. Rather than putting your email address in the chat box at the end, we will actually give you a link, and you will fill out a little bit of information once you go to that link, and that is how we will track your attendance. We will give you more information at the end, but please be paying attention for that. If you are just watching this webinar at home on your own computer by yourself, then that means you're an individual and you just submit one. But if you're a group of teachers watching this webinar together in one room, then that's when you would enter the number of participants in your viewing session. As I mentioned before, there's a way to interact with the presenter after the webinar is over. This is on our Ning site, shapingenglish.ning.com. If you haven't visited this site before, you do need to first register to join the site, and then your membership will be approved. But this is where you can ask the presenter questions after the webinar, And you can also access the PowerPoint, readings, and the recording of this webinar. We are excited about today's webinar. The topic is grammar, which I know you all love. And our presenter today is Amanda Hilliard. So welcome, Amanda. Let's get started.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. As she said, my name is Amanda Hilliard, and I'm an English instructor at Arizona State University. Very excited to be doing the webinar with you guys today. Before we started the webinar, oh, okay. I'm sorry. We'll do that a little bit later. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started with a new poll question. Today, our topic is spoken grammar and how you can teach it, what you can do with spoken grammar. So let's take a look at the first question we have here. I know you're familiar with English textbooks, so here we have another poll question just to start off the webinar. So you have choice A or choice B. Which one do you think? The A says, I ordered some paint from you a couple of weeks ago, some vermilion. Yeah. And I wanted to order some more. Name's Boyd. Yes. How many tubes would you like, sir? What's the price now with VAT, you know? I'll just work that out for you. Thanks. And B says, my little brother is a really good student. Why do you say that? Well, he's really smart, so he always gets good grades. Maybe he gets good grades because he studies hard. Okay, I can see that you've voted, that you're starting to vote, and overwhelmingly the choice is letter B. And you're all correct. So letter B is the example from the English textbook. Now, if we look at this one, it's clearly a scripted example. There's no kind of false starts, and there's none of the features of spoken grammar that we're going to talk about today. So if our students only see this, they're going to think that they have to be perfect when they are speaking English because they're used to the perfect dialogues from their textbooks, but that's not true. So today, we're going to go over features of authentic English communication that will help the students feel like they don't have to be perfect and will help them speak more fluently. Okay, so let's continue. I want to go over the day. First, we're going to talk about spoken English versus written English. Okay, after that, we're going to talk about what is spoken grammar. That's the topic of the webinar. So we're going to review 6 different characteristics, 6 different features of spoken grammar. And we're going to go over examples of each one. After that, I'm going to mention 2 questions about spoken grammar. And then, of course, since we're all teachers, at the end, we're going to talk about activities for teaching spoken grammar, taking the information that you learn in the webinar and using it in your own class to teach your own students. Okay, for this webinar, you'll need paper and pen or pencil. Okay, so please, if you don't have it, take a minute to find some paper and pen or pencil so that you can participate when we have different questions. If you're a viewing group, of course, you can talk about the answers and discuss together as well. I love to hear that. Okay, is everybody ready? Let's go on to the first topic, which is spoken English versus written English. Okay, so at the bottom of this page, you see or less planned, and on the right side it says more formal and more planned. And there are 7 activities. So on your paper, if you could draw the line and write the numbers for the activities, we're going to have a poll, so you don't need to write it in the chat box. So you don't need to write this in the chat box, but please put it on your paper and then pick your answer on. So we have the first one is a formal essay. Is that going to be less formal, less planned, or more formal, more planned, or somewhere in the middle? Put that one on your poll, on your paper. Okay, number 2, a conversation with a close friend. Okay. Number 3, an email to your boss. Is that going to be less formal, less planned, or more formal, more planned? Write on your paper or discuss with your viewing group. Number 4, an email to your mom. How will that one be compared to the email to your boss? Number 5, a presidential speech given by the president of the country. Number 6, a text message. And number 7, a phone call to a coworker. Take a minute, write it down on your paper or discuss with your viewing group, and go ahead and put your answer in the poll on the right side of the page. I see a lot of people picking number 2, the second choice. Okay, what do you guys think? Okay, let's go through each one at a time. You may have slightly different positions than me, but I think we can agree on the answers here. So, first, a formal essay. We're going to put that one to the right. It's time to go ahead and write it, and it's pretty formal. You want to turn it in. A conversation with a close friend. I don't know about you, but I definitely do not practice or plan mine ahead of time. So less formal, less planned. I'm not practicing before I meet my best friend. An email to your boss. It's my boss, so maybe after I write the email, I'm going to go back and double check everything's okay. So not as planned as the essay, but I'm still going to try to be careful and to write pretty well. Now, the email to my mom, not so much. I usually don't really edit it. I'm going to write it and send it out very quickly. We have a close relationship, so she's not going to get upset if I disagree with, if I have some mistakes. Number 5, a presidential speech. Okay, it's spoken, but it's very formal, very, very planned. He has a team of writers, and I'm sure he's going to practice it many times before he gives the speech. Okay, a text message. Same thing, I really don't take a lot of time to go back and edit my text message. So I would say pretty informal, not really planned very well. And the last one, a phone call to a coworker. Well, I'm going to think about what we should talk about, and I will try to be a little formal with my coworker, but not that much. So still towards the less formal, less planned side. Okay, so if we take a look at this line, on the left side, we have some written activities as well as some spoken activities. So you have a conversation with a close friend, but you also have the email to your mom or the text message. On the right-hand side, the same thing. We have some written activities and some spoken activities. The presidential speech, very formal, very planned. Formal essay is also very formal, very planned. So we can see spoken English versus written English. There's some activities in both that are less formal and less planned, and some that are more formal and more planned. About spoken grammar, we're going to be thinking about speaking activities on the left side of the line. Activities that are less formal or less planned. So you can think about spoken grammar as something that you can use for conversational English. If you pick a slightly different order, it's okay. Or if your numbers are in a slightly different place on a line, that's okay. You know, maybe you want to be perfect when you're writing the email to your mom, so you go back and edit it more, okay? But anyways, this is just a general idea. So again, today we're going to think about spoken grammar that our students can use for conversational English. Times when they want to speak in pretty informal situations when they haven't prepared ahead of time. Okay, we're not thinking about formal presentation, about formal speeches. Okay, this is for conversational English. All right. So how do spoken English here, conversational English, and written English differ? Maybe you can think of some ideas. All right, let's go through some differences. So when we have written English, it's planned, and we write in stages. Usually, you have a long time to write. You might do pre-writing first, then writing, editing, revising. Spoken English is spontaneous. It's not planned. Most of the time, when we have a conversation, we haven't practiced beforehand, and there's no chance to go back and revise. Written English is prepared in advance over a long period of time. Okay, spoken English is produced in real time. You can't tell them, you can't tell the person you want to talk to, oh, wait just a minute, I need to write it down, or something like that. Okay, written English, we have a chance to revise and edit. So if you make a mistake, you can go back. You can fix the mistake. Spoken English, there's no opportunity for editing. You can't go back and unchange what you just said. Okay, written English is often solitary, so you do it by yourself. And you don't get immediate feedback from your readers. Now, spoken English, it occurs face-to-face. It's interactive, so if the person I'm talking to doesn't understand, I know immediately that they don't understand, and I can change what I'm saying, or I can explain myself more. And finally, written English tends to be permanent. You have a copy forever, or it's on your computer forever, whereas spoken English is temporary. Unless you record it, it's gone. So that's kind of the characteristics we have for conversation. So as you can see, written English and spoken English have some different characteristics. This means they each have different challenges. And when we're speaking, the main challenge is to speak quickly, to respond immediately, and not to be able to edit. So as we go through different features of spoken grammar, keep these characteristics in mind. The features help us deal with these characteristics of spoken English. So these grammar features will help you and your students cope with the idea of speaking and planning their conversations, not being able to edit, and the interactive. Okay, now we have the question. So, what is spoken grammar? Well, grammar is the rules of language. So spoken grammar will be the rules of speaking. So today, as we go through the features of language that allow speakers to communicate in real time, face-to-face situations. Okay? Now, I saw from the discussion board, some people are thinking by spoken grammar, we mean that all grammar mistakes are okay when you're speaking. And that's not the case. So as we go through it, it's not a grammar mistake, it's just a different rule. Okay, so today we're going to go through different rules of speaking. Okay, let's begin. So the first one I want to go over is called ellipsis. Here are two examples, okay? So when we're speaking, sometimes we omit or take out some words. Okay, for example, if I'm speaking, instead of saying that sounds good or that is absolutely right, I might just say sounds good or absolutely right. So when we're speaking, it's okay to take out a subject or verb if it's clear from the situation. Here's another example. So instead of saying, do you want to dance? I can say, wanna dance. It's clear that I'm looking at you, so it's clear from the situation, and I can take out do and you. Yes, and I could also say just dance. You know, there's a lot of choices, okay? So this is where I'm taking out some of the words. If I was writing, I would need to include all of the words, but when I'm speaking, the situation makes it clear. So I can take out some subjects or verbs as long as it's clear from the conversation. So why do we have this ellipsis? We have a shared context. When we're speaking, it's clear who or what I'm talking about. And when I take it out, it makes it simpler and easier to understand and also faster. Okay, when we're having a conversation, we want to respond quickly. So using the ellipsis gives us a way to answer, to ask questions. It's clear. I can take out the subject or the verb. I can't do this in writing. Okay, let's go on to for the ellipsis. Okay, I want to see how well you understand the ellipsis. It says which sentence below contains an ellipsis. You can choose choices. A, did you go to the party last night? B, party last night? Or C, go to the party last night. Okay, which sentences has one or two words taken out? It contains an ellipsis. Okay, I can see almost everyone has chosen C, but B and C are both examples of ellipsis. So in the first sentence, did you go to the party last night? It's a full question, contains the subject and the verb. So if I were writing, I would write the full sentence. But if I'm speaking, I'm talking directly to you. I can take out the did for B and have you go to the party last night? Or C, go to the party last night? So either one can be the example of the ellipsis. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, the next feature I want to talk about is a head. Okay, your head is at the top of your body, so a head comes at the top of, okay, in this case, I'm gonna put the subject first and then make a comment about it. Okay, so I'm gonna put the subject first and then make the comment after that. If I say like written style, it will say, I really like that old lady. But it's difficult for my listener because they have to listen to the very end of the sentence to find out what I like. So it's very common to put the topic at the beginning. That old lady, I really like her. It's easy for my listener. Okay, so I'm gonna put the noun, the topic first. Okay, so introduces the topic first, which makes it easy for my listener. In addition, it gives speakers and listeners more thinking time, okay, because I put the topic first and gives me some time to think about what I want to say about the topic. Okay, so again, if I were writing, I would say, I really like that old lady. But with speaking, I can put the topic first and then make the comment. Okay, so this is another feature of spoken grammar. Oh, I'm sorry. We should go to the poll question next. Okay, so now we're going to look at heads. Which sentence below contains a head. So you have 3 choices. This time you should only pick one answer. So A, that new teacher, I really like her. B, I really like that new teacher. C, do you really like that new teacher? Which one has a head, the topic at the beginning of the sentence before I give the comment about it? Wow, I can see almost everyone has the correct answer. So A is the sentence that has a head. In this case, I said that new teacher first, and then I made the comment about the new teacher. So this one, the head is at the beginning of the sentence. Here the head is that new teacher. Okay, let's continue. So far we've talked about the head and the ellipsis. Now we're going to go on to the next feature, which is a tail. So the head comes at the beginning of the sentence. The tail will come at the end of the sentence. So heads at the beginning, tails at the end of the sentence. Here's an example. She's very nice, that new teacher from America. Okay, so here, that new teacher from America is the tail. Maybe I'm having a conversation and I say, she's very nice, but I think it's not clear who I'm talking about. If I'm writing, I can go back. I can edit and say, that new teacher from America is very nice. But I'm speaking and I already said she's very nice. So I want to make it clear who I'm talking about. In this case, that new teacher from America. Here's another example that's maybe more common to hear in England. It's a serious picture, that. In this case, that really adds some emphasis to show I really like this picture. I think it's a very serious picture. So the tails have a few features, a few functions. The first one is that it can clarify a comment, as in the first example. Okay, she is not clear. I can't edit. I can't go back and change what I just said. So I just clarify it by adding the tail at the end of the sentence. I can express a personal attitude or judgment. In this case, that is a serious picture, that. Okay, maybe I'm making it clearer or I'm emphasizing, really makes it a clear statement. Or they can have an interpersonal function when I'm talking with someone as well. Okay. Let's go to the poll. So it's time to vote and see which one you think has a tail. So remember, the tail comes at the end of the sentence to clarify or to give an opinion. So here you want to choose just one answer. Okay, which sentence below contains a tail? A, the chocolate cake at that restaurant is to die for. B, did you like the chocolate cake at that restaurant? Or C, the chocolate cake at that restaurant is to die for. It is. Which one do you think has a tail at the end of the sentence? Okay, I can see that most people have picked C, and that's the correct answer. In this case, it is at the end. I added this to really emphasize that I love this chocolate cake. Okay, so the chocolate cake at that restaurant is to die for. It is. Really gives it some emphasis. The others are just written just like plain English, but like written English. And you could see this as in speaking as well. So heads or tails, you don't have to use them, but they're useful if I want to clarify, want to express an opinion, something like that. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so we've talked about ellipses, heads, and tails. I want to talk about is a filler. These may be very familiar. So the filler is a word like well, these are very common in spoken English. So we said spoken English, we have to respond and answer immediately. But sometimes native speakers or your students may need some extra time to think. So fillers, give them some. Okay, at the beginning of a turn, I get more time. So if you say, what do you think, Amanda? And I don't have an idea yet. I can say, well, I think that. It's going to give me some more time to answer. Now, if it's at the end of the turn, it gives me some more time as well because it shows my listener that I'm not finished. So if I say, I think that the webinar is great. Well, it's blah, blah, blah. In that case, the fillers have stopped my listener from interrupting me. So it shows that I want to continue. I'm not finished yet. Okay. And again, it serves interpersonal and conversational functions. Really, the main thing is it gives me some thinking time and shows when I want to continue. And so I can I can use the filler to hold my turn, or I can get time. That the filler is an indication of proficiency. Native speakers use them all the time, so it's time. So, even if I'm a native speaker, when somebody asks me a question, I might need some. Let's try the poll, okay? So, again, you have 3 choices. Which sentences below include fillers? So you want to pick more than one. Do you know what his phone number is? I really can't remember what his phone number is. Or C, I would like to find out what his phone number is. Which sentences do you think have a filler? Okay, I see some people still voting. Which sentences do you think have a filler? You can pick more than one. Okay, I see some people picked A, about 70%, and about 74% for B, 77% for C. In this case, every sentence has a filler. So in A, is my filler. Gives me some thinking time. In B, we have what is his phone number? And in C, find out what his phone number is. So all 3 of the sentences have fillers. Okay, so if you pick A, B, and C, you're correct. Okay, the next feature I want to go over is the back. Back channel is a little bit like the opposite of a filler. These are words like oh, really, or yeah. If you're having a conversation with somebody else, you want to show them that you're listening or that you understand. So back channels we don't use in writing, but we use all the time in a conversation. Have you ever had a conversation and the person just sat there and stared at you? You'll feel confused whether they understand you or not. So the back channel is really important to include in a conversation. So these are words used to acknowledge what the speaker says and encourage him to continue. This shows that you're listening, that you understand, that you're interested. Okay, so when our students don't use them, it can make a very awkward conversation. I've had some conversations with students who don't remember to use these words. Again, serves interpersonal conversational functions. And also, it can help with real-time communication. So it's just a way to confirm that you're listening, you understand, you want the speaker to continue talking to you, right? Okay, let's take a quick look at the poll. So let's have another poll question to see about the back channels. Okay, which sentence which response below includes back channels? So these are 3 responses you could use. Which one includes back channels? Just pick one. Just pick one this time. So you have A, I totally agree with you. B, I'm not sure if I really agree with you. Or C, yeah, I completely agree. Which one uses a back channel to show that I'm listening and I understand? Okay, I see most people have picked C, and you're correct. That one has the back channel. Here, yeah, it shows that I'm listening and I understand what you're saying. Now B has the fillers that we just looked at before. So in B, you can see and that person needs some speaking time to think about what to say. So B has the fillers, but C is the answer with the back channels. Okay, let's go back to the presentation, and we're gonna see the last feature that we will talk about today. Okay, so again, the last with. The phrasal chunks. So phrasal chunks. Here's some examples. Sort of, kind of, stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Kind of like vocabulary, different words that we use for speaking. And we can teach it to students just like vocabulary. So once they know the meaning, they can use it in their own conversations. The first group creates vagueness. Vagueness means it's not 100% clear. So sometimes. Okay. Are you hungry? I'm sort of hungry. You know, I don't do that. I want to say I'm not hungry, so I can use this kind of phrase to not be specific. Politeness, a bit or a little bit. Mark discourse structures. Discourse structures are places in a conversation where things are changing, right? So we have you know, or I mean, okay? And I think someone in the chat box already mentioned, but these also act as fillers. So if you don't want your students always saying, they can say, well, you know, I mean, and gives them some more time to think as well. Okay, so if they don't want to always say, they can also use phrasal chunks to give them a little more thinking time. Okay, once they learn the phrasal chunk, they can just put it right into the conversation. Okay, let's go to the last spoken grammar activities. Okay, so we have the phrasal chunks. Okay, which response below, which sentence below includes phrasal chunks? So you're just gonna pick one. So you have A, I mean, you know, he's a very good student. B, he's a very good student. Or C, the teacher thinks that he's a good student. Which one includes one of the phrasal chunks that we just mentioned before? Oh, I see many people voting for letter A. And you would be correct. So here, I mean, or you know, are the phrasal chunks. In this case, it probably gives the speaker some more time to think, so also acting as a filler. So what do you think about the new student in class? I mean, you know, he's a very good student. Gives me some thinking time. Of course, we can say B or C as well. It just doesn't include a phrasal chunk. Okay, so now we've talked about 6 different features. I want to check and make sure that you are very familiar with these features. We can't teach them if we don't know what they are. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a short quiz, but no need to worry, there's no grade, okay? So you're going to see, okay, you don't need to answer yet. You don't need to answer yet. There's no sentence yet, okay? So for each question, you're gonna see a sentence or a question, pick which feature is gonna be in that question. Okay, but there's no question yet. Okay, so wait just a minute. At the bottom, you can see your choices: ellipsis, head, tail, filler, back channel, or phrasal chunk, and you can vote in the poll on the right. Okay, so I see you're very ready to vote, so let's go ahead and see the first question. You want to pick which one is in this sentence. She's my best friend, Amanda is. Okay, so Amanda is that going to be ellipsis, head, tail, filler, back channel, or phrasal chunk? Okay, go ahead and you can vote for this sentence. She's my best friend, Amanda is. Okay, I see almost everyone has this correct. You picked the tail. So Amanda is the tail at the end of the sentence. So I've said she's my best friend, but maybe it's not clear. Who is she? I can't go back and unchange or edit what I just said, so I'm gonna add the tail. She's my best friend, Amanda is. So this is an example of the tail. Did you get it right? Let's try another one. You know, the quiz was kind of hard. So we have you know and kind of. What do you think that will be? The ellipsis, head, tail, filler, back channel, or phrasal chunk? I see many people voting. And almost everybody has the correct answer with the phrasal chunk. So you know and kind of here are the phrasal chunk. Just like vocabulary, I can just use it right away in my conversation. Okay, let's go to number 3. Want to come over tonight? Want to come over tonight? Is this one ellipsis, head, tail, filler, back channel, or phrasal chunk? Let's see if you are paying attention. So in this case, one at the beginning is ellipsis, head, tail, filler, back channel, or phrasal chunk. Go ahead and vote. Discuss with your viewing group. What do you think? Again, you guys are so smart. I see almost everybody has picked ellipsis. Okay, so instead of saying, do you want to come over tonight? I've taken out do and you. Okay, so I've taken out some subject and verb to make the sentence shorter because it's clear I'm talking to you. So I can say, want to come over tonight instead of do you want to come over tonight? Excellent. Okay. Number 4. I'm answering, right? Well, I might, if I have time. Well, I might, if I have time. This one is a little bit tricky. I want you to pick 2 answers. This one is a little tricky. I want you to pick 2 answers. There are 2 spoken grammar features in this sentence. Interesting. There's two features in the sentence. I see many people are putting back channel. Back channel is really more like yeah, to show I'm listening. So this one has the filler, well, and ellipsis. If I'm writing, I need to put might plus a verb, right? I might want to come over, or I might want to eat something, I might have time, or I might go to the party. Okay, so in this case, it has the filler, well, and the ellipsis, because I didn't say might what. So in this case, probably someone asked me, do you want to come over tonight? Want to come over tonight? And I said, well, I might, if I have time. I don't have to say I might want to come over tonight because it's clear from the sentence, okay, from our conversation. So I used ellipsis and a filler in this one. Okay, let's continue. Number 5. I definitely agree with you. Here we have What kind of spoken grammar characteristic is I see everybody voting. Okay, this case we can think of as a back channel. It's showing that I understand and I'm listening. So if someone's talking to me, I'm talking with my mom. I'm going to say yeah, to show I'm listening, I understand. Okay. And last question. So that one is a back channel. This is the last question. That new dress I bought, it was really expensive. So we have here, that new dress I bought. What kind of spoken grammar feature is that new dress I bought? Is it an ellipsis, head, tail filler, back channel, or phrasal chunk? Oh, excellent. I see almost everyone has picked the head. Okay, so this case, it comes at the beginning of the sentence. It gives me the topic first, and then I make the comment, it was really expensive. So I put the topic, the noun phrase at the beginning of the sentence, and then I made the comment. Wow, you guys did a great job. So I'm sure that you understand the different spoken grammar features. Okay, so now we've learned about the 6 different features for spoken grammar. And I told you I want to go over to spoken grammar. So the first one, I hope you agree with me that it's a good idea to teach spoken grammar. But in case you don't agree yet, I'm going to give you a few reasons to teach spoken grammar. Of course, the first one is it helps our students to have a better conversation. They need to answer immediately. They need to communicate in real time. So something like fillers gives them time to think. Something like helps the help that I'm listening to them. So it really helps with the conversation. Again, these are active social and communicative functions. So they serve a purpose in our conversation. And of course, the most important part, it can increase students' spoken fluency and communicative abilities. So if they start using these kinds of features, it will help me, which is our main goal when we're teaching speaking. Okay? So I hope by now, why should you use authentic materials to teach spoken grammar? Really tough. But at the beginning of the webinar, we saw the small excerpt from the English textbook. Okay, so we saw the small excerpt from the English textbook, and it didn't have any spoken grammar features. So I want to encourage you to develop some lessons or use some authentic materials. Okay, spoken grammar is not covered well in our textbooks. Okay? The conversation in the textbooks cannot serve as a reliable model for teaching spoken grammar because they don't have spoken grammar features. They don't include fillers or ellipses or heads or tails. So I really want you to encourage you to use authentic spoken class material with features of spoken grammar in your own classes when you teach. Okay? So I would recommend things like radio interviews, talk shows, or online videos. Okay, so I want you to think for just a minute, what kinds of activities could you use to teach spoken grammar in your class? We've talked about any example activities for teaching ellipsis, heads, tails, fillers, back channels, and phrase chunks. Some people commenting about authentic materials being difficult to use, we're going to go over some different sources, okay? So don't worry, there's going to be sources that are not too difficult to use, okay? I see a lot of people putting in the chat box. Can you discuss with your viewing group for just a minute, thinking about your different ideas, and then I'm going to give you a lot of different ideas. A lot of different things that you can use in your own classes. Okay, I see a lot of great ideas. Great. So, I'm gonna go, we're a little bit short on time, so I will go ahead and give you some different grammar feature. So let's start with ellipsis, okay? Let's start with ellipsis. So the first activity is called stand up or sit down. Okay, so I'm going to explain and I will let you need to write in the chat box. I want you to really stand up or sit down when we get to the example. Okay, so don't write in the chat box, actually stand up or actually sit down, and I will give you the answer. So don't worry about this. Example, in class, you give students no ellipsis is a long version, they're going to stand up all together. Okay? If it has ellipsis, it's a short version, they're going to sit down. So before you do this activity, you've explained what is ellipsis, and you just want to practice and make sure a lot of examples. Okay? So are you ready to try? I'm going to give you 4 examples. If it has no ellipsis, I want you to stand up. Do not write in the chat box. If it's an ellipsis with short version, you sit down. Really sit down, don't write in the chat box, okay? Ready? Okay, the first one. Wanna come over after class? Wanna come over after class? Stand up or sit down. Wanna come over after class? Okay, I hope everybody is sitting down. Don't write in the chat box. There's just too many people to write in the chat box, okay? So I hope everybody is sitting down. Instead of saying the long version, do you want to come over after class? I said, want to come over after class, taking out. Let's try another one. Don't write in the chat box, just actually do it. Stand up or sit down, okay? Did you finish all your homework yet? Did you finish all your homework yet? Okay, I hope everybody is standing. Okay, because this is it has the subject and the verb. Okay, hope you got it right. Let's try another one. Don't write in the chat box, just actually, do you understand what I just said? I hope everybody is standing up. Okay, because this one has the subject and the verb, there's no ellipsis for this question. Okay. And the last question. Coffee? Coffee? I hope everybody is sitting down because instead of asking the long question, would you like some coffee? I've just asked coffee, a cup of coffee, something like that. Okay, so you can totally see how you would use this activity in your class, just making sure that students understand. Now, if you have an advanced class, you could also ask them to change it. So if you give them, you could ask them for the long answer. Would you like a cup of coffee? If you give them the long version, would you like a cup of coffee? To give you the short version. Yes, you could also ask a cup of coffee. So there's many choices when you give the ellipsis, okay? So you can do either way. All right, let's continue. You give students a written dialogue, maybe from your book. Have them either fill in omitted words, the ellipsis, the words that have been taken out, or to create their own ellipsis. Okay, and then this means they're going to make a long version or short version. So if they add back in missing words, they're going to make the long version. If you want them to take out words to make the ellipsis, it's going to be short version. So let me show you the example. Okay, this is from my textbook. I found it yesterday. So here, Lily and Charles are talking. You would give this to the students and ask them to cross out as many words as they could to make a short version. So Lily says, I just saw the most extraordinary thing on television. Charles, what was it? Lily, it was this woman who had a severe injury and lost her arm. What's extraordinary about that? It sounds terrible. This conversation from my textbook has no ellipsis. So you already have the textbook, you know it doesn't have ellipsis. Go ahead and use that with the students. So you ask them to cross out as many words as they can. So here's the example. So my students might cross out I just, what was it, what, and take out it was. Instead of saying what's extraordinary about that, they might say extraordinary. Sounds terrible, right? Okay, so this is an example of how the students could take the inauthentic material from the textbook and practice some of these features of spoken grammar. Okay, so it's just an example. Okay, they could cross out some other words, but this one is the short version. Okay, so this is taking the textbook conversation and making a short version. Okay, another idea is a long versus short conversations. So maybe in class, you have students write conversations with a partner sometimes. So you might have them write two conversations, make a long version and a short version of the same conversation. So when the students write the conversation with a partner, they might, they probably don't use the ellipsis. So then they add in the ellipsis. At the end, you could have them act out both versions for the class. So they have the long version and then the same conversation. Okay, so this is just a way to have them practice using the ellipsis in their own conversation. Okay. And one more teaching activity. I think it's great to use a video in the classroom to give students an authentic example of people speaking. So I'm going to show you the example. First, I would give, and the script is going to include a long version. Okay, so it won't have any. As students watch, I want them to cross out the omitted words, the words that have been taken out. Okay. And then after that, so that's basically the activity. I will give them a script. The students listen and cross out the words that have been omitted, the ellipsis from the video. Okay. So now, and I want you to cross out any words in the script that you do not hear. So you can either write it on your paper or you can discuss it with your viewing group. Let's go to the video. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. Okay, so I will read the long version for you, and then we will watch the video. So the long version on the left, it says, so how long have you been in London? I have been in London 2 weeks. Is that really true? So what do you do? I study graphic design at Camberwell School of the Arts. So this is your first 2 weeks? Yes, this is my first 2 weeks. It's quite a big impact. London is very big. There are lots of people, and it's quite expensive as well. So this is the script. This is the long version. Okay, we're going to play the video, and you want to cross out or write down the words that you don't hear. I'm going to play the video 3 times. So I will give you 2 times to write it down, write down the words that you don't hear. And the 3rd time, I will show you the exam and play the video 1 more time. So you would be like my students. So you can imagine doing this activity with your own students. Okay? Are you ready? Let's go to the video. Okay?
So, how long have you been in London? 2 weeks. Really? Yeah. So, what do you do? Graphic design, catalog.
I'm sorry. Okay, so did you get the right answer? You can see that there's a lot of ellipses in this conversation. Almost nothing is a full response. So it's a good example to use with the students because they can see a real conversation. And this video comes from a website called Luke's English Podcast. So the website has the scripts already prepared. So you would just have to edit it to include the ellipsis, and then you could use it directly with the students. So it wouldn't be a lot of extra work for you as the teacher. Okay, so those are some activities that we. Okay. Here is the last part. I want to go over some games. We love using games in our classes. So here's an example of a game, and we're going to try it as well. Okay, so let's get started. First, you would divide students into groups. Then I will give students the long question or sentence. After that, the groups would use ellipses to make it shorter, and I would give each group 1 point for each correct answer. And you can also do this the other way. So you can give a short answer, and then have them make it longer and give them a point for making a long question. Okay. So here's the example question. Can you make a short version? Do you want to dance? Can you make a short version? If you're the student, what will you say? Okay, I see some people typing. Wanna dance? Wanna dance? You want to dance would be an example. Okay, dance might be okay. So you could give the students a point for coming up with those. Go to lunch after class. Are you going to go to lunch after class? How would you make this a short one? You can write down on your paper. You can discuss with your viewing group. Okay, I see a lot of people saying, Lunch after class, just lunch. You could take out are. You going to go to class? Going to go to lunch after? So a lot of different questions that they could use. Okay, and then they could practice asking each other the questions that they came up with after the game was over. Okay, so I see you get the idea. Okay, if I'm going to question lunch, somewhere in there. Okay, because that's the main questions. Lunch after class. You going to lunch after class? Something like that would be okay. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, so in this one, I will put students in pair other. You know, student A would challenge student B. So the first one would give a long question or sentence. The other pair should make it shorter. And 1 point for each correct answer. So you see the example here. The first student or the first pair said, I didn't do my homework last night. Okay, and the other person made it a shorter sentence by saying, didn't do my homework last night. Okay, so that's why they're working together, and they can practice the ellipsis together. Okay, so those are some activities that we can use for teaching heads and tails. So heads and tails are less familiar for students by giving them a worksheet explaining about heads and tails and giving them a worksheet to do. Here's an example. I would ask them to decide which one has a head or tail. So here we have 1A or 1B. Isn't your brother a soccer player? Your brother, he's a soccer player, isn't he? So I would ask the students, which one has a head? Which one has a head? Okay, I see we're a little bit less sure about this one. But most people are answering 1B. So you would be correct. Here, your brother is the head. I give the topic first and then ask the question after that. Okay, let's try another one. This is, again, what I would put on the worksheet. So I would ask the students, which sentence has a tail? So I've explained what is a head, what is a tail, but I want to practice with them. So 2A, Robert is really clever. 2B, he's really clever, Robert is. So which one contains the tail? Okay, I see you've got this one correct. 2B, here Robert is would be the tail. So I would make a worksheet with, different examples like this to practice with the students. Okay. Want them to practice writing or practice making a head or tail. So I would also give them some examples where they have to write their own head or tail. So here are some examples of a sentence I might put on the worksheet. So Amanda is a great teacher. The student should fill in a tail here. She is, or something like that, okay? Number 2, he can speak English, can't he? The students would write who, right? My father, your brother. Number 3, it costs only $10. They would add the head. And number 4, you worked really hard. They would add the tail. Maybe you did, as a way to emphasize it. Okay. Okay, so once they understand and they've gone through the worksheet and know about heads and tails, I can have them practice in pairs, just like we did for the ellipsis activity. So in this case, student A would give the head or topic of the sentence, and then student B would finish the statement. For the tail, the first student would give a statement, and student B needs to add a tail, just so that they can practice with a partner. Example, maybe the first student says, our teacher, she's really, really nice. The tail example, the first student says, I see our teacher over there. The next student adds, Miss Hilliard. Okay. So this is an activity. After they do the worksheet, they know what is a head, what is a tail. Have them practice actually making it in pairs so that they can use it for themselves when they have a real conversation. Okay, we're a little short on time, so let's continue. Fillers and back channels. Here's an example for the whole lesson plan. Okay, so with a partner. Now, I'll bet that they don't use any fillers or back channels in their conversation. So next, I will tell them about fillers and back channels and have them complete a worksheet, discuss as a class, so that now they know what is a filler channel. After that, they watch a short video with a conversation from a TV show, from an interview, and I would have them count the number of fillers and back channels the characters use, discuss as a class. So what they will find is when they watch the video, they will see just how common the filler and back channels are. Sometimes students think, oh, I don't sound like a good speaker if I use too much. You know, native speakers, they just speak perfectly. But when they watch, they will see native speakers also use many fillers and back channels. Now that they've done the worksheet and they watch the video, they're going to want to go back and change their conversation. So I kind of planned it so that they write the conversation first. I don't say anything so that they don't use fillers or back channels. Then at the end, once they've seen the worksheet and the video, they want to go back and add in fillers and back channels to their own conversation, and then maybe act out for the class. So it's just a way to practice, okay? Here's an example of the worksheet that you could use with the students. So I would give them some examples. I see, or really. And then I would have them fill in the chart. Which one's a filler, which one's a back channel. And I would also ask the students to add 2 more words for each column. That way they're going to get a lot of good examples of fillers and back channels that they can use in their own conversation. Okay, so once they do this, they're going to come up with some answers here, and hopefully they'll come up with their own ideas as well. Notice I put in both columns. Sometimes I think it can work as a filler to give me some time, or sometimes I can just say and it shows that I'm listening. So I think they could use it for either one, right? So this kind of worksheet shows them a lot of different examples of the fillers that they can use in their class. Okay, another example. Again, I really like to use my textbook to show that it's not real English, it's kind of inauthentic. So here's an example of a passage from my own textbook that I used last year, listening and speaking. So here the teacher is talking with the students. I'm going to read through the conversation and then tell you about the activity. So in this one, it's an audio recording from my textbook. Okay, the teacher says, the question for Unit 1 is, do you like your name? How about you, Yuna? Were you named after someone in your family? Yes, my aunt. Is your name common in Korea? Yes, it is. What about you, Sophie? Where did your name come from? It's not really a family name. My parents just like it. Do you like it? Yes, I do. But people spell it wrong a lot, or they think it's short for Sophia, but it's not. Do you like your name, Marcus? Sure, it's a great name. It was my father's and my grandfather's and my great-grandfather's. So you can see in this example, there's really no examples of spoken grammar features. So I would take this from my textbook and ask the students to add fillers or back channels, just like they did for their own conversation, to make it sound more authentic, more natural. And as they do this, they will discuss what kind of fillers they want to use, when they use them, what part of the sentence put them in. So it really helps them practice using it correctly. So here's the example of how they might add in the fillers and the back channels. So I added fillers with blue letters and the back channels are with red letters. So in this case, the teacher is using a lot of back channels to show that she's actually listening to her students. And then a lot of fillers as people are thinking, you know, before a question or before they answer the teacher's question, they're going to use fillers to give them some thinking time. Okay, so if students do this, they're going to be thinking about where to put in the fillers, what to use, how to make it more natural. Okay, so let's continue. I want to give you some suggestions for phrasal chunks, and then that's going to be it for the webinar. Okay, so the phrasal chunk classroom activities. So again, I would have kind of a worksheet where students would be practicing the phrasal chunks to introduce them some examples of what they can use. And then I would have them watch a video and count the number of phrasal chunks they hear. Again, should be an authentic video where people are having a real conversation. So this can raise their awareness of the frequency, how often phrasal chunks are used. They can add phrasal chunks to pre-existing conversations from the textbook or conversations that they have written. And then you could also ask students to have a conversation and use at least 5 of the new words. So you might ask them to have a 2-minute conversation, use at least 5 new words. So these are just 4 examples of activities you could do to have students practice using the phrasal chunks. Here's an example of a worksheet that students understand the function, when to use the phrasal chunks. So I would give them different phrases and ask them to put it in the chart. And then I would ask them to add some more words. You would be surprised how many different words that the students already know. So this gives them a big list of different words that they can use, just like vocabulary in their own lessons. We're a little short on time, so I'm just going to give you the answers instead of having you complete the worksheet yourself. Okay, so here the students have added, sorted the different phrasal chunks to show which ones create vagueness, which ones modify, and which ones can connect ideas to mark discourse structures. And then I gave some possible additional answers that the students might use. So for vagueness, they could use or so, more or less, adding ish to a word, and saying and so on. For modifying, they could use a great deal of, a little, a large number of, the majority of. And if they learn these, they can use it just like vocabulary words. And possible additional answers for the discourse structures. On the other hand, basically, actually, let's see, something like that. Okay. So again, this is an activity I would use when I was first starting to talk about the phrasal chunks with the students. Some phrasal chunks are in the books, but many books don't have a lot of them like written out in a full worksheet like this. So I would recommend trying something like this with the students. Okay, finally, especially if you have advanced students or you've been doing the spoken grammar activities over a long period of time, you can try this last activity. It's an interview project. So let's say you've already taught students ellipsis, head, tails, fillers, back channels, and phrasal chunks, maybe over a course of 6 weeks or 2 months, and you want to make sure that they understand it and you want them to put it all together. Because so far we've been teaching each one separately, but when we have a conversation, we use all the spoken grammar characteristics. Okay, so for this project, you could have students interview advanced or native speaker of English and record the interview. I recommend just a couple of questions, 3 or 5 questions. Students would transcribe, write down the interview, and then identify grammar for themselves. They say, this is where interviewee use ellipsis, something like that. And then at the end presentation, play the video, describe the characteristics of spoken grammar, and discuss with the class. Okay, so let me summarize what we've talked about so far. Spoken grammar, we should teach spoken grammar to increase student spoken fluency. Spoken grammar or the rules of spoken language. Today we talked about ellipsis, heads, tails, fillers, back channels, and phrasal chunks. Try to use authentic materials such as videos or radio interviews that include spoken grammar features. And we should have activities that raise students' awareness of different features of spoken grammar as well. Finally, we should encourage students to incorporate spoken grammar into their own conversations. Don't think about it as a mistake. It's just a different rule that we use when we're speaking. Okay, so I'm getting some questions, and I have a few minutes to talk about some questions. But I'm also going to be posting on the discussion board and on the Ning website. So you can find all the materials there as well. Let me give you some questions that I'm getting from our moderators. First of all, I'm getting a lot of questions about L and a tag question. So the tag question is also something that we use for speaking. You say something like, "You like your teacher, don't you?" Okay? So if I use this for speaking, at the end, it has a certain format, a certain phrase where I put the verb first and then a pronoun at the end. Okay, so but in that case, it's a question that I've added to the end of the statement. You like your a tail. I would say, you like your teacher, you do. Okay, it's not really a question. So here, I can use it to clarify, or I can use it to clarify, or I can use it to emphasize my comment, but it's not a question. So let me give you those examples one more time. You like your teacher? Tag question, don't you? Okay, I'm asking a question. Or, you like your teacher? You do. Okay, another question that I'm getting is, what level can we use this with? Okay, so I would recommend, I think that they can be used with all different levels if you adjust the different activities or the different. Okay, so something like a filler, you can use with all different levels. Even beginning students can use a filler or back channel. They're super simple. They just add or they can use or yeah. Okay. Something that's more complicated, like the head or the tail, I might wait to use a little bit later. But I think you can just adjust the material or adjust activity for any age level or for any English level. The way, if it's a beginner student, they're to use fillers to give them some thinking time. Or they're really going to need to use simple back channels or simple so that they can speak more fluently and more quickly. Okay. So I'm going to post this presentation on the Ning, but there's a lot of references. Do you have any questions? Okay. There's a lot of references as well. So if you're interested in reading more about it, you can see the presentation on the Ning website. Okay, so again, if you have questions from here, please post them on the discussion forum, and I will try to respond to everybody's questions. And you can also find more materials for reading or the PowerPoint on the Ning website as well. I've really enjoyed having the webinar with you, and I hope that it's been useful for all of you as well. And we'd love to hear back from you on the discussion board.
Thanks, Amanda, for that great presentation on spoken grammar today. I think that we all have a much better understanding now of the features of spoken grammar and have some fun new ways for how to teach those aspects of speaking in our classrooms. Thanks much for your wonderful participation and great ideas in the chat box today. Be sure to check out all the great resources on the name and, of course, on americanenglish.state.gov, where you can find Amanda's forum article and all of the forum articles for our webinar presenters for this course. Our next session will be on May 20th. It will be the gradual release of responsibility presented by Sandra Clark. You'll be able to learn about how this effective teaching method can help you give more independence and autonomy for your students. So as you can see, we are using our new system of attendance again. Please do not enter your email address here on this site as we have done in past courses. Your attendance will not be counted if you enter your email address here. But please go to the link listed here and follow the simple instructions to submit your attendance one time. You will see something similar to the image here on this slide when you enter the site, and you will not be admitted more than one time, so please make sure that you take your time and enter the information correctly. And of course, we hope that you like our new system for taking attendance. If you have any problems at all, we will be in touch over email, and we will also enter that email in the chat box here. So thank you again so much for attending today. We look forward to taking your attendance on the link and, of course, seeing you in the discussion board on the name. Thanks so much and have a good one.